Let me tell you a story. It's a story every single software developer out there really needs to hear. It's about this brilliant young dev, an app that looked absolutely perfect on the outside, and the invisible enemies that were about to bring the whole thing crashing down. This is the developer's security journey.
Now, in every good journey, you need a guide, right? Well, ours is a cybersecurity specialist named Mira. And with just these few words, she's about to change everything for our struggling developer, and, maybe for you too.
So, let's meet our hero, Arjun. He had poured his heart and soul into his first big web app. The design was slick, the backend was powerful, it was finally starting to get some traction. But then things started to go really, really wrong.
And look, we're not talking about a single simple bug here. This was a full-blown crisis. Users started complaining about the strangest things. There were reports of unauthorized access, data was getting corrupted, and a flood of suspicious logins started hitting the servers. His perfect app was failing, and he had absolutely no idea why. He was fighting enemies he couldn't even see.
So Arjun is totally lost, he's worried, and he finally reaches out to Mira. But she doesn't come back with some quick fix or a fancy piece of software. Nope. Instead, she introduced him to her secret weapon.
Mira told him that this document was the key. It was the key to understanding and ultimately defeating those unseen enemies. You see, this wasn't just some boring document. It was a map to the entire modern threat landscape. Arjun's real education was just about to begin.
So Mira started walking Arjun through the 10 most critical security risks that web applications face today. And for Arjun, each and every one was a painful lesson, a moment where he realized, oh no, I did that. They started with number 1, the most common vulnerability of them all, broken access control. This is all about failing to actually enforce rules on what users are allowed to do. An attacker just guessed a URL, literally changing /profile to /admin, and boom, they had full access. That's when Arjun had his first big uh-oh moment. He realized he was just hiding links on the front end, not actually securing things on the back end.
Next up, number 2, security misconfiguration. And what's so scary about this one is just how simple it is. We're talking about forgetting to turn off debugging mode, using default passwords right out of the box, or accidentally leaving a cloud storage bucket wide open to the public. You could just see Arjun's face fall as you remembered all those test servers he spun up using the default settings.
Number 3 is a total modern nightmare: software supply chain failures. Mira's point here was huge. Security isn't just about your code anymore. It's about every single open source library, every package, every tool you pull into your project. One compromised dependency can poison your entire application. Arjun got a chill. He'd used dozens of libraries without ever even thinking to check them.
Then they got to number 4, cryptographic failures. This is all about protecting your data, whether it's flying across the internet or just sitting in your database. Arjun learned about a startup that stored all their user passwords using this old, totally broken algorithm called MD5. When they got breached, attackers cracked thousands of passwords in just minutes. It's such a classic avoidable mistake.
And of course, you can't have a top 10 list without this old enemy: injection. This is what happens when you blindly trust input from a user. An attacker types a malicious command into something as simple as a search box, and because you didn't check it, that command runs on your server and maybe wipes your entire database. Arjun just hung his head, remembering all the forms where he skipped input validation just to save a little development time. Okay, let's just hit pause here for a second. Are you seeing the pattern emerge? Mira pointed this out to Arjun. His problems weren't caused by some mastermind hacker pulling off a super complex attack. No, they were the result of simple, common, and honestly, totally preventable oversights. Okay, back to the list. Number 6 goes way deeper than just code. It's about insecure design. This is what happens when you fail to think like an attacker, right from the beginning. It's a process called threat modeling. Mira told him about a fintech app with this beautiful design, but it had a fundamental flaw that let attackers literally change the payment amounts. The lesson? If you don't build security into the blueprint, you're just building a pretty fragile house.
Number 7 is all about identity, authentication failures. Think about it. Weak passwords, not requiring two-factor authentication, sessions that just never expire. These are basically open invitations for someone to take over an account. Arjun had a sudden flashback to that test account he'd left in the system, with the password 123456. Yikes! Moving on to number 8, software and data integrity failures. Now this one's a little more subtle. It's all about making sure that the software you're running or the updates you're pushing haven't been messed with. For example, without a digital signature on your updates, something called code signing, how do you really know that the update being sent to your users is actually yours and not some malicious package an attacker slipped in?
Mira then said something that really haunted Arjun. She said, "You may be hacked and never even know it." And that chilling idea leads directly to the next critical failure.
Which is number 9, logging and alerting failures. And Mira's analogy here is just perfect. Not having good monitoring is like driving a car with no dashboard. You have no idea how fast you're going, if the engine is overheating, or if you're about to run out of gas. Sure, Arjun had logs, but he had no real alerts set up to tell him when something was actually going wrong.
And finally, number 10, a newer one on the list, mishandling of exceptional conditions. This is all about what your application does when it breaks. Does it fail safely and securely? Or does it fail open, maybe bypassing security checks? Does it spit out a long, ugly error message full of sensitive information? How your app behaves under stress is a huge security concern.
So after walking through all 10, Mira explained that this OWASP list, it wasn't just a checklist he had to finish. No, it was meant to be a catalyst for a completely new way of thinking about his job. And this right here, this perfectly illustrates the mental shift Arjun went through. He used to see security as just another feature, something to tack on at the end. But now, he understood it had to be the foundation. He used to think it was someone else's job. Now he knew it was everyone's responsibility. It's the difference between an afterthought and a mindset. And that's really the core lesson here. This was Mira's final piece of wisdom for Arjun, and for all of us really. Security isn't a product you buy, or a final step in a process. It's a continuous practice, a habit that has to be woven into every single line of code, every design decision, and every single deployment. So, as Arjun went back to rebuild his application, this time safer, stronger, and a whole lot smarter, we're all left with this one question. Think about your own projects, your own code. Is your security a solid foundation that you've been building from the very start? Or is it just an afterthought, waiting for its own unseen enemies to show up?